You have two options, and both are a slow poison. The first, believing that there is a cosmic grandfather in the clouds who writes down your sins in a notebook and hands out punishments like a celestial foreman. It is childish, you know it. But the second option seems worse, believing that this is it, that the universe is a cold and mute accident, that your anxiety, your awe, your search for meaning are just erratic sparks in a purposeless void. You live in the crack between those two poisons, and it is killing you inside. And what if I told you there is a third option, one that does not come from a prophet on a mountain, but from a solitary guy who polished lenses for microscopes in the 17th century? A man whose community excommunicated him, cursed him, and tried to erase his name from history for an idea, the most dangerous, logical, and liberating idea of God that has ever been formulated. He was not a saint, he was a heretic, and his heresy is the antidote you need today. Because Baruch Spinoza did not come to ask you for faith. He came to give you a weapon, understanding, and in the next few minutes I am going to put it in your hands. This is not the history of philosophy. This is a survival manual for when you feel that the world, or a punishing God, or absolute nothingness, are crushing your mind. Imagine that the air you breathe is not oxygen. It is fear. A fear with the smell of bonfire smoke. That was the air of the Europe in which Baruch Spinoza was born in 1632. His family, Portuguese Jews, had fled the Inquisition. They did not move to Amsterdam for business opportunities. They fled so as not to be tortured and burned alive for their beliefs. That is the first fact that matters. Spinoza did not learn theology in books. He learned it in inherited trauma, in the nightmare tales about what power does when it dresses up as God. His first teacher was not a rabbi. It was the shadow of an executioner. But Amsterdam was different, right? The Dutch Republic, a beacon of relative tolerance. A respite. But there is the first deception, and Spinoza saw it clearly. Tolerance is not freedom. It is a contract. You can be Jewish here, as long as you do not threaten the order, commerce, social peace. His community, the Sephardic Jews, lived on that thin line, grateful for the refuge, but terrified of being persecuted again. They clung to their identity, to their law, with a rigidity born of panic. The synagogue was their fortress, and in besieged fortresses, dissidents are treated like traitors. Spinoza was not a rebel without a cause. He was a mind that could not swallow the official narrative. His father, a merchant, him, a brilliant student. But the lenses, there is the key. To earn a living, he learned the trade of polishing lenses for telescopes and microscopes. Think of the brutal poetry of that. The man who would redefine God spends his days perfecting instruments to see beyond, to see the infinitely large and the infinitely small. While his hands polished the glass to correct distortion, his mind polished ideas to correct the biggest distortion, the idea of God. But the immune system of the tribe is ferocious. He started asking questions. Questions that were not youthful rebellion. They were system failures in the software of belief. If God is infinite and perfect, why does he need our exclusive love? Why does he get offended? Are the stories of the Bible literally true, or are they metaphors for a primitive people? Questions that today you would ask in an internet forum. In 1656, they were dynamite, and the Herem arrived. The excommunication. It was not a farewell letter. It was a public curse. An edict read in Hebrew in the synagogue, designed to break him. May he be cursed by day and by night, that no one could speak to him, help him, nor even get closer than 4 steps, that he be erased, not just from the community, but from the human map. Here is where history becomes a foundational myth, because the Herem was not his end, it was his origin. It was the pressure necessary to create the diamond. Imagine that moment. You are 23 years old. Your entire world, your family, your friends, your identity, your economic future vanishes in an instant for an idea. What do? Most break. They recant. Spinoza did the opposite. He took off the mask. He changed his Hebrew name, Baruch, for its Latin equivalent, Benedictus. The blessed, a cold and perfect irony. He rejected inheritances so as not to owe anything to anyone. And he withdrew, not to a cave, to a workshop, to keep polishing lenses. That is the detail that changes everything. His philosophy was not born in a dusty library. It was born in an optics workshop, amidst the sound of glass being sculpted by reason. Biographers count dates and places, but I tell you the character that was forged. The man without a tribe. The first completely free philosopher, without loyalty to a nation, to a religion, to a family. His only loyalty was to reason, to the evidence he saw through those lenses he polished. Solitude was not his punishment. It was his high-level laboratory. There, without the noise of dogmas, he could rethink everything from zero. Does this pattern sound familiar? It is not the Herem, but it is the deaf pressure of your tribe. The family that would say, "What have you become?" if you exposed your doubts for real. The friends who would drift away if you stopped following the script. The society that rewards you for conforming and punishes you for questioning. Spinoza is the living proof that sometimes, to find a truth that is not poisoned by consensus, you have to be willing to be erased from the social map. You have to choose between the comfort of belonging and the brutal solitude of coherence. He chose coherence, and from that radical solitude, he built a system that was not a consolation, but a reflection of the universe as he saw it. Clear, implacable, and beautiful. Therefore, when that system tells us that God is not a being, that free will is an illusion, and that emotion is a calculation error, it will not come from a theologian in a pulpit. It will come from an exile in a workshop who paid with his entire social life for the right to say what he saw, and what he saw broke the world in two. Now get ready to see it yourself. We are going to execute the most dangerous idea ever written. Forget everything you believe the word God means, because Spinoza, the exile from the lens workshop, did not come to reform the concept. He came to execute it, dissolve it in logical acid, and resurrect it with a meaning so vast and ruthless that your mind will fight against it. You are going to hate it at first. You will feel like the floor of reality is being ripped away. Then, perhaps, a fraction of this will start to sink in. And if it sinks in, your existence will never be the same again. You will not be more free in the childish sense. You will be, for the first time, conscious. And in that consciousness lies a calm that no God or therapist can give you. His central idea is not a theory. It is a cosmic coup d'etat, a rewriting of the source code of reality. God is not the creator of nature. God is nature. Ima Deus sive natura. Two Latin words that are a thermonuclear bomb for the Western worldview. Dodi, God or nature. There is no separation. There is no duality. There is no transcendent being with a mind and will who from the outside designs, judges, and rewards. The divine is immanent. It is inside. It is the very essence of everything that exists. In every rock, in every worm, in every neurotic thought that crosses your mind at 3 a.m., in the implacable law of gravity, and in the cancer that kills without reason. In the algorithm that recommends a video to you, and in the supernova that destroys a solar system. It is one and the same process. This is not the pretty and diffuse pantheism of feeling the energy of the trees. That is spiritual posturing. This is pure and hard monism, geometry applied to the soul. There is only one substance. One. Singular. Infinite. Eternal. Call it God, call it nature, call it the ultimate reality, or the matrix. It is the same. And everything you see, everything you feel, everything you are nothing more than modes or affections of that single substance. Finite temporary modes, which appear and disappear on the infinite surface of the only real thing. Think of water, the ocean, the river, the ice cube in your glass, the steam that fogs a mirror. They are distinct forms with distinct properties, but the substance is the same, H2O. The wave is not property of the ocean. It is the ocean itself, momentarily organized as a wave. Now scale that to everything. You are a particular temporary wave in the ocean of God nature. Your consciousness, your I, is the ephemeral pattern that wave forms for an instant. And the wave does not fight against the ocean. It cannot. It is the ocean. Your ego just received the first hammer blow, because if this is true, your sacred individuality, your unique and independent I, of which you boast so much, is a useful illusion, a narrative that your brain tells to maintain coherence. A passing configuration of the infinite substance, like a cloud shaped like a dragon that in 5 seconds will be just sky. But before you rebel, before you scream that this is cold nihilism, think of the obscene freedom this entails. If God is everything, nothing is profane. Your body is not a dirty prison for a pure soul. It is a divine attribute expressing itself in flesh, bone, and chemistry. Pleasure is not a temptation of the devil. It is an affection of the divine nature. Pain is not a punishment. It is a signal. Spinoza does not demand that you deny the world to find God. He demands that you look at it head-on, with your eyes wide open, because by looking at it in all its rawness and beauty, you look at Him, it. Transcendence is in immanence. The sacred is in the mud. But here comes the second hammer blow, the one that hurts in the deepest part of your illusion of control. Absolute determinism. In Spinoza's system, written as if it were a geometry manual, everything that happens by necessity. The infinite substance, God nature, expresses itself through an infinite, perfect, and unbreakable chain of causes and effects. It is a web of logic as necessary as a theorem. 1 + 1 = 2, and the fall of the apple and your decision to watch this video and the love you feel for someone and the hatred that consumes you are all links equally necessary in that chain. He wrote his masterpiece, The Ethics, more geometrico, in the style of Euclid, with definitions, axioms, propositions, and demonstrations. There is no place for mystery or caprice. For him, human freedom, as your screaming ego understands it, is a necessary fiction for survival, but a fiction nonetheless. Imagine a water molecule in a mountain river. It falls down a waterfall, crashes against a rock, is pushed into a whirlpool, heats up with the sun, and evaporates. The molecule, if it had consciousness, might fervently believe that it chooses its path, that it is special, that its trajectory is unique and free. But you, from the outside, with understanding, see pure physics. Gravity, hydrostatic pressure, friction, thermal energy, when its trajectory was totally determined, from the beginning of the universe, by the initial conditions and the immutable natural laws. There was no maybe. Spinoza looks you in the eyes and tells you, you are that molecule. Your thoughts, your decisions, what you believe are free choices born of a pure will, are the necessary result of an infinite causal chain that goes back to the Big Bang. Your brain is a physical system governed by laws. Your desires are caused by your biology, your history, your chemistry, the words you heard as a child. There is no ghost in the machine, an ethereal you that intervenes to twist the laws of physics. You are nature, and nature follows rules. Do you feel like you are in a steel prison? It is the logical reaction. You have just been told that you are a conscious automaton. But here is the twist, the trick that Spinoza constructs with a watchmaker's precision. Spinoza is not your jailer. He is the engineer who hands you the complete, detailed blueprints of the prison, and he tells you, with a calm that drives one mad, the freedom you seek, the real one, does not consist of choosing the walls. That is impossible. Freedom consists of understanding why the walls are exactly there, what material they are made of, and then stopping banging your head against them until you fall unconscious. Freedom is the end of stupid resistance. Now let us bring these giant concepts down, cosmic ones, to the mud of your daily life. Because Spinoza is not an intellectual exercise. It is an operations manual for the psyche. Let us start with your internal engine, your background operating system, the conatus. This is, without a doubt, the most important concept that Spinoza gives you to understand your own internal chaos. The conatus is the effort, the impulse, the essential tendency of anything to persevere in its being. It is the very essence of what it is. A rock perseveres by being solid, resisting erosion. A flame, burning, a lion, hunting, and defending its territory. And you, human, your conatus is your fundamental impulse to exist, to flourish, to increase your power to act, your capacity to be affected, and to affect the world. It is desire, but stripped of all moral connotation. It is pure biology turned into metaphysics. Everything you do, everything, is an expression of your conatus. From the instinct to eat when you are hungry, to the desperate search for love. From the impulse to study for an exam, to the infinite scroll on social media, looking for a flash of validation. Your clinical depression is not a sin, a spiritual void, or a moral weakness. It is, in Spinozist terms, a conatus severely blocked, a power to act that has contracted until almost disappearing. Your anxiety is the alarm signal that your conatus perceives a threat to its perseverance. Your envy is the painful recognition that the power of another increases while you feel that yours stagnates. Spinoza turns psychology, emotion, into pure physics. Your emotions are not spiritual mysteries or character flaws. They are precise indicators, although sometimes confusing, of the state of your conatus in its interaction with the world. And this brings us to the jewel in the crown, the reverse engineering of the human soul, the theory of affects. Spinoza, in the Ethics, dismantles emotions like a mechanic dismantles an engine. There are no simplistic divisions into good and bad. It is a chemical analysis. An affect, or emotion, is first a modification of the body, a change in its power to act, and then the conscious idea of that modification. Sadness, tristitia, is an affect that diminishes our power to act. It makes us more passive, smaller, more fragile. Joy, letitia, is an affect that increases our power. It makes us feel capable, expansive, connected. Hatred is a sadness accompanied by the idea of an external cause. Love, a joy accompanied by the idea of an external crime. Hope is an inconstant joy. Fear, an inconstant sadness. Up to here you might think that he is only putting labels, but here comes the operational hack, the transition from slavery to freedom, the passage from passion to action. A passion is an affect, of which we are an inadequate cause. It happens to us, it overwhelms us. It dominates us because we are unaware of its true causes. We feel dragged by it. Example, the paralyzing panic before a public presentation. It is a passion. Your hands tremble, your mouth goes dry, your mind goes blank. You are an effect of hidden causes, evolution, traumatic memory, fear of social judgment. An action in the Spinozist sense is not doing things. It is an affect of which we are an adequate cause. It arises from our clear and distinct understanding. If you understand that panic is just adrenaline, an evolutionary pattern of response to a perceived threat, being excluded from the tribe, if you understand that your value as a person does not depend on the result of that talk of 10 minutes, the panic does not magically disappear, but it stops governing you. You observe it, you understand its mechanics. And from that understanding, you act despite it, or even with it, using it as energy. You have turned a blind passion into a conscious action. You have reclaimed, even if just a little, your power. You have made a greater part of your being an adequate cause and not just a confused effect. This is the Spinozist path towards what he calls beatitude, or more famously, the intellectual love of God, amor Dei intellectualis. It sounds like mysticism, like transcendental poetry. It is the most anti-mystic, anti-poetic, and powerful thing you can imagine. Onte, it is not a trance, nor a prayer, nor an ecstasy of union with the divine. It is a state of mind, a cognitive achievement. It is when your understanding of the laws of nature, of God, becomes so clear, so distinct, that your effects reorganize and align with what is necessary. You stop desiring with anguish what is impossible. You stop suffering with rage for what is inevitable. You find a serene, active, and permanent joy, not despite your place in the cosmic order, but because of it. It is the calm of the physicist who studies a hurricane from a satellite. He cannot stop it, it would be absurd to try. But he understands every vortex, every pressure gradient, every cause that generates it. And in that pure understanding, there is a terrible beauty, an admiration without fear, and an indestructible peace. The hurricane remains destructive, but it is no longer incomprehensible, and the incomprehensible is the source of all fear. The intellectual love of God is not loving a being. It is loving the fact of understanding. It is the pure joy, not emotional, but intellectual, that a mathematician feels when contemplating the inevitable elegance of a perfect demonstration, applied now not to a theorem, but to the totality of your existence, including your suffering. Spinoza goes as far as to say, something that twists the mind. This love towards God, God loves himself through it. Because you, in that state of maximum understanding, are a finite mode of God, through which the infinite substance understands itself, knows itself, loves itself. It is the self-consciousness of the universe, momentarily focused in your fragile and temporary frontal lobe. Now let us connect this with high-voltage cables, with everything that hurts you, distresses you, and breaks you in the 21st century. Your chronic anxiety about the future, that knot in the stomach about what could happen, it is a pure passion. It is born of a conatus that wants to persevere, but that using imagination, a powerful but deceptive tool, projects 1,000 possible futures where it is destroyed, humiliated, abandoned. Spinoza would tell you, the future does not exist. It is a useful fiction for planning, but a torture if you cling to it as reality. Only the present exists, and the causal chain that generates it in this instant. Your anxiety is suffering for a ghost, for a mode of imagination. Focus your conatus, your power, on understanding the real causes of your present. What affects you now? Act on what exists, on the proximate causes, not on the specters of what could be. Clarity about the present dissolves the fog of the future. Your addiction to external validation, especially on social media, it is a sad affect. A hamster wheel that diminishes your power in the long run. Your joy, the increase of power, depends on an external, unstable, and alien cause. The likes, the comments, the approval of strangers. Your conatus has become entangled in a reward circuit you do not control. Spinoza would tell you that joy is passive, it is slavery in disguise. Seek active joy, the one that arises from internal causes, from increasing your own power through true knowledge, from autonomous action, from creation. The joy that comes from understanding how your mind works, from mastering a skill, from connecting deeply with another person, from truth and not from a pose. That joy cannot be eliminated by an algorithm nor by the indifference of an online crowd. It is yours. It is a fortress, your fear of death, the king of all fears. Here is Spinoza's masterstroke, his strongest and bitterest medicine. For Spinoza, the mind, mens, is the idea of the body. It is not a separate substance. It is the knowledge that the body has of itself and of what affects it. When the body perishes, decomposes, the idea, the mind, the personal consciousness also dissolves. There is no individual immortal soul that flies to a heaven of rewards or a hell of punishments. That, for Spinoza, is superstition that uses fear to control. And this but is colossal. It is the heart of his dry and logical hope. Since you are a finite mode of the infinite substance, God, in the moment you reach understanding, in your intellectual love of God, you participate in something eternal. Not the eternity of lasting forever in time, like an immortal soul, but the eternity of the timeless, of truth. It is the difference between wanting a moment of happiness to last forever, impossible, and understanding a mathematical truth that is true now, was true 1,000 years ago, and will be true in 1,000. That truth is eternal. Spinoza says that the part of our mind that understands necessary truths, that part is eternal. It is not your personality, nor your memories, nor your name. It is your pure understanding. When you die, that understanding, that fragment of the infinite mind of God that temporarily was you, reintegrates into the whole, not as a memory, but as a truth that has been apprehended. Death stops being a terrifying punishment or a transition to a non-life. It is a natural, necessary reconfiguration of the modes of substance. The fear of death, for the one who understands, Duni, dissolves like the fear of the night dissolves when you understand the rotation of the earth, because you are not a stranger in the universe, an accident condemned to annihilation. You are a fleeting but conscious expression of the universe itself, thinking itself. And in that understanding, there is an acceptance so deep that it is confused with absolute peace. Therefore, Spinoza's philosophy is not a consolation. It is a brutal challenge, an ascent to Everest without oxygen. It takes away all amulets, all placebos, all fairy tales. There is no Father God who listens to you. There is no personal immortal soul that survives you. There is no magical free will that makes you special. There is no given cosmic purpose that justifies your life. It leaves you naked, shivering on the peak of a mountain of ice, facing the silent void of a universe indifferent in its essence, but understandable in its functioning. But it gives you in exchange the only gift that cannot be corrupted, the naked truth, and with that truth, the only freedom that is not an illusion, the freedom of the one who knows the rules of the game in which he is forced to play. You will not be a puppet who ignores his own strings, dancing, believing himself free. You will be a conscious fragment of the whole, who finds a serene, active, and powerful joy in the mere fact of understanding the mechanism, not in changing it, but in seeing it with clarity. Spinoza does not promise you salvation. He does not promise you easy happiness. He promises you lucidity. And in a world built on illusions, dogmas, and comforting lies, lucidity is not a consolation. It is the ultimate superpower. It is the only thing that truly belongs to you, because it is the only thing that cannot be snatched away. So what do we do with this? Do we sit down to contemplate eternity while our life crumbles? No. Spinoza was not a salon mystic. He was a worker of truth, and his philosophy, if it is good for anything, must have an action protocol, an emergency manual for when the world, or your mind, starts to collapse under the weight of erroneous illusions. This is not thinking positively. It is cognitive engineering. I present to you the Spinoza protocol for today. A system in 3 steps, extracted directly from the ethics, for when you feel that your conatus is blocked, that passions are drowning you, and that the world is a prison. Step 1. The cold diagnosis. Replace judgment with observation. What if the next time a destructive emotion floods you, be it explosive anger, envying that corrodes, anxiety that paralyzes, or that dark sadness that seems to have no bottom, do not do the first thing everyone does. Do not judge yourself. Do not say, I am a weakling. This should not happen to me. How bad I am for feeling this. That moralizing voice is the first enemy. It is the echo of the punishing God that Spinoza exiled. Instead, activate the observer mode. Ask the Spinozist question. What part of my conatus, of my essential impulse to persevere and increase my power, feels blocked or threatened here? Anger is not bad. It is an affect of sadness, decrease of power, accompanied by the idea of an external cause that has harmed you. Your conatus perceives an obstacle, a decrease of your power, and reacts with an explosion to try to remove it. Envy is sadness before the joy, increase of power of another, accompanied by the desire to possess what he has. Your conatus sees in the other a mirror of what it lacks. Anxiety is an inconstant fear before an imagined future where your conatus will be annihilated. Only with this step, you have done something revolutionary. You have demoralized your emotion. You have taken it out of the realm of good and evil and put it in the realm of mechanics. It is like when an engineer looks at a machine that makes a weird noise. He does not insult it. He listens to it. He diagnoses it. You have stopped being the sinner in confession to be the technician of your own psyche. Step 2. The hunt for causes, from passion to understanding. Once the affect and its relationship with your conatus are identified, the hunt begins. Passion is powerful because its cause is confused, inadequate. Your job is to make it clear. Do not look for, why is this happening to me, in a victimizing way. Look for, under what laws of nature, physical, biological, social, psychological, were this event, and my reaction predictable, almost inevitable. You are angry because your partner ignored you. Confused cause, she is inconsiderate, she does not love me. Adequate cause, your conatus seeks recognition and connection, law of human social nature. A stimulus, her indifference, was interpreted as a threat to that connection. Attachment pattern, personal history. Your neuroendocrine system released cortisol and adrenaline, biological law. The reaction of anger is a clumsy attempt to re-establish the bond and recover power. You are anxious about a presentation. Confused cause, I am going to make a fool of myself. I am a fraud. Adequate cause, your conatus seeks status and security within the group. Evolutionary law. The stage is a field of modern tribal judgment. Your sympathetic nervous system activates to prepare you for a threat. Physiological law. Anxiety is the name you give to that chemical cascade and the catastrophic narrative your mind weaves about it. By looking for adequate causes, you do something magical. You depersonalize the suffering. It is not a unique and special drama of yours. It is the functioning of nature expressing itself through you. This does not make it less real, but it takes away the aura of personal curse. It is a process, not a destiny. And what is process can be analyzed, and what is analyzed stops having absolute power over you. Step 3. The active realignment, the power hack. Here is where you pass from passive to active, from effect to cause. You cannot choose not to feel the initial effect. It is determined. But you can choose what to do with the understanding you have just gained. The goal is not to suppress the emotion. It is to act to unblock your conatus from understanding, not from blind reaction. Use the energy of the emotion, but redirect it with lucidity. Instead of screaming, blind reaction that usually diminishes your power more by damaging the bond, you take the energy of agitation and turn it into a clear action. You breathe. You recognize, my conatus feels threatened in its need for respect. Then, you act from that understanding. I'm going to communicate calmly how that action made me feel to restore the bond. You have transformed anger passion into action communication. Instead of paralyzing yourself, freezing, decrease of power, you recognize, my body is preparing for a social threat. You accept the heartbeats, the trembling not as signs of failure, but as biological fuel. And you act. You prepare the presentation with more detail. You increase your real power, or simply breathe and remind yourself that your value does not depend on these 10 minutes. The anxiety does not leave, but it stops piloting the plane. You take the controls, with trembling hands, but controls at last. The calm you feel when doing this, however small it may be, is not the absence of emotion. It is the fraction of a second in which the intellectual love of God becomes real. It is the taste of beatitude. It is the active joy of understanding the rules of the game and moving your token with knowledge, even if you lose the match. That calm is your power. It is Spinoza's freedom. It is not the freedom to fly, but the freedom to know exactly how the laws of gravity work and plan with them. Strategic closing. The game without an end. That is why Spinoza is not the end of your search. It is the beginning of a new game, much harder and much more real. He has given you the tools to dismantle your illusions, but the work is yours. Every day, every conflict, every moment of pain is a workshop where you polish your own lens, that of your understanding. Now the challenge: do not give me a like. That is external validation, a passive affect. Show me that the conatus of this video has increased your power to act, your capacity to understand. I throw you the cold diagnosis challenge. In the comments, apply only step 1 to a modern, personal pain. Do not tell me your story. Do the Spinozist analysis. For example, my conatus gets blocked when I see the apparent success of others on Instagram because I perceive a threat to my own value, status, social power. My conatus reacts with paralyzing anger when my boss ignores me because I interpret his action as a threat to my security, competence, power to act at work. My conatus contracts in sadness on Sunday afternoons because it anticipates the routine of the week as a prolonged limitation of my freedom, power of self-determination. He who can name his chains with these words is no longer a slave who moans. He is an engineer who is examining the blueprints, and he who has the blueprints sooner or later will find the way to move inside the prison, or even find that the doors were open all the time. Today we took the microphone away from the God of priests and politicians. We returned it to where it always was, in the beat of your heart, in the logic of an equation, in the chaos of a storm, and in the order of a cell. It is a God who does not listen to you, but whom you can understand. And in a world of noise, understanding is the only sacred silence. But this leaves a terrifying void. If God is not a celestial legislator, who dictates morality? On what do you base yourself to say that something is right or wrong? If free will is an illusion, are we then responsible for nothing? Does ethics collapse? Here is the next earthquake. Spinoza, the ruthless logician, built on the ruins of the punishing God, an ethics as solid as steel, as cold as space, and more powerful than any commandment. An ethics that does not come from above, but from within, from the very geometry of existence. An ethics where good is simply what increases the power of your conatus and that of others, and evil what diminishes it. Where virtue is not obedience, it is pure intelligence. If you believe the idea of God was dangerous, wait to see his idea of the good. It is going to make all the morality of influencer shops, productivity gurus, and political speeches deflate like punctured balloons. Because killing idols is just the first step, that of destruction. Building your own temple from the foundations of reason and conscious desire, that is the true power. And that journey we will make here.